She entered the training grounds wearing a faded shirt, a weathered backpack, and her hair pulled back loosely, resembling a supply worker who'd wandered into the wrong place. The recruits laughed among themselves. Since when does the military accept backstage help? During a combat exercise, a male soldier grabbed her by the collar, ripping her shirt down the spine, and yelled, "Women like you are only useful for staying out of sight." But when her back tattoo became visible, a seasoned colonel immediately stood at attention and offered a salute. The entire facility went silent. This wasn't just any ordinary tattoo, it was the classified emblem of Ghost Viper. Olivia Mitchell seemed out of place there, at least in everyone else's eyes. She'd arrived at the NATO training facility in a run-down pickup truck with chipped paint and tires covered in mud from some forgotten road. No one would have suspected she grew up in one of the nation's wealthiest households, raised among private instructors and exclusive estates. Olivia carried none of that world with her. No luxury brands, no manicured appearance, just a plain expression and garments that appeared to have been laundered countless times. Her boots showed wear, her backpack held together by one determined strap. But it wasn't merely her appearance that distinguished her. It was her composure, the manner in which she stood with her hands tucked away, observing the facility's chaos like she was anticipating a signal only she could detect. The opening day was an ordeal. Captain Harrow, the lead instructor, was an imposing figure with a voice capable of ending a disturbance. He walked the grounds, evaluating the cadets, his gaze settling on Olivia. "You," he shouted, gesturing. "What's your situation? Did the supply team lose their way?" The crowd chuckled. A woman named Tara, sporting a sharp blonde ponytail and an insincere smile, whispered to the recruit beside her, "I bet she's here for appearance's sake. Diversity quota, correct?" Olivia remained expressionless. She faced Harrow, her demeanor composed, and replied, "I'm a recruit, sir." Harrow scoffed, dismissing her. "Fall in line, then. Don't hold us back." At the first meal in the dining hall, Olivia took her tray to a corner table distant from the conversation. The space hummed with recruits exchanging tales, their voices amplified, their confidence even more so. A guy named Derek, lean and arrogant with a buzz cut, noticed her sitting isolated. He grabbed his tray, strutted over, and slammed it on her table with a loud clatter. "Hey, Wanderer," he announced loud enough for surrounding tables to notice. "This isn't a charity kitchen. Are you certain you're not here for dish duty?" The crowd behind him broke into laughter. Olivia paused her fork midway to her lips and regarded him. "I'm having my meal," she stated, her tone unwavering. Derek leaned closer, grinning. "Well, eat quicker. You're occupying space actual soldiers require." He flicked her tray, causing mashed potatoes to splatter across her shirt. The room roared. Olivia cleaned the mess with a napkin, her movements deliberate, her focus never shifting from her plate. She took another bite as if he were invisible. Warm-up exercises tested endurance, push-ups until muscles trembled, sprints that seared the lungs, burpees in the dirt beneath a scorching sun. Olivia maintained pace, her breathing controlled, but her shoelaces kept coming loose. They were worn, frayed, barely securing her boots. During a sprint, a guy named Lance jogged alongside her. Lance was the squad's star, broad-shouldered with a smile that suggested he'd never experienced defeat. "Hey, bargain basement," he called loud enough for the entire line to hear. "Are your shoes quitting, or is that just you?" Laughter spread through the group. Olivia gave no response. She knelt, retied her laces with swift, exact movements, and rose. But as she did, Lance bumped her shoulder forcefully. She lost balance, her palms hitting the mud, her knees sinking into the wet ground. The squad howled. "What's happening, Mitchell?" Lance remarked, smirking. "Are you volunteering to Oper, scrub the floors, or just be our practice dummy?" Olivia stood, wiped her hands on her trousers, and continued running. Not a single word. The laughter trailed her all morning. During a rest period, Olivia sat on a wooden bench, retrieving a granola bar from her bag. Tara approached with two other cadets, her arms folded, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Olivia, right? So, where do you even come from? Did you, win some lottery to be here?" Her companions giggled. one covering her mouth as if it were hilarious. Olivia took a bite, chewed deliberately, and looked up. "I submitted an application," she stated, her voice level as if discussing the weather. Tara's smile became forced. "Okay, but why?" she insisted, leaning in. "You don't exactly project elite warrior. I mean, look at your everything." She gestured at Olivia's muddy shirt, her plain brown hair. Olivia set her granola bar down, leaned forward just enough to make Tara recoil. "I'm here for training," she said, "not to boost your self-esteem." Tara froze, her cheeks flushing. Whatever she muttered, walking away. Weirdo. "Hey, pause for a moment. If this narrative is resonating with you, can you do me a quick favor? Pull out your device, give this video a like, maybe leave a comment below, just a word or two about what's connecting with you, and hit subscribe. It means everything to continue sharing stories like Olivia's stories that remind us what it means to remain strong. All right, let's continue. The navigation exercise was a fresh kind of challenge. Cadets had to traverse a forested ridge, map in hand, within a strict deadline. Olivia moved independently, her compass steady, her steps quiet against the pine needles. A group of 4 cadets, led by a thin guy named Kyle, spotted her checking her map beneath a tree. Kyle, who'd been competing for Lance's attention, saw his opportunity. "Hey, navigation expert," he called, his voice cutting through the silence. "Are you lost already, or just out here enjoying nature?" His group laughed, moving closer. Olivia folded her map, her fingers methodical, and kept walking. Kyle jogged up, grabbing the map from her grasp. "Let's see how you manage without this," he said, tearing it in two and throwing the pieces into the breeze. The others applauded. Olivia stopped, her eyes following the fragments as they drifted away. She looked at Kyle, her expression blank, and said, "Hope you know your route back." Then she turned and continued moving, her speed unchanged. Kyle's laughter weakened, but his group kept mocking, their voices echoing through the forest. The rifle disassembly exercise came that afternoon, and it was a reality check. The cadets had 2 minutes to dismantle an M4 carbine, clean it, and reassemble it. Most struggled, their fingers fumbling with the components, cursing as pieces dropped. Lance finished in a sloppy 143 seconds, grinning like he'd succeeded. Tara barely made it at 159, her hands trembling as she clicked the final piece into place. Then Olivia stepped forward. She didn't hurry, didn't pause. Her hands moved as if following a memorized sequence. Pin removed, bolt released, parts arranged in a perfect grid. 52 seconds. Not a single error. Sergeant Polk, the instructor, stared at the timer, then at her. "Mitchell," he said, his voice subdued, "where did you acquire that skill?" Olivia wiped her hands on her pants and stepped back. "Practice," she said, her gaze on the ground. The training monitor played a slow-motion replay, every movement clean, no wasted effort. A lieutenant nearby muttered to Polk. Her hands were completely steady. "That's special operations level," Lance overheard and scoffed. "So she can clean a weapon?" he said loud enough for Olivia to hear. "Doesn't prove she can engage in combat." But during the break, a quiet cadet named Elena, who'd been observing Olivia carefully, slipped her a backup map from her own equipment. "You'll require this," Elena whispered, her eyes checking to ensure no one noticed. Olivia accepted it, nodded once, and tucked it into her bag without a word. Whispers began after that. A few cadets glanced at her during the next break, attempting to understand her. Olivia appeared unconcerned. She sat on the grass, retying her laces, her face as expressionless as always. Tara leaned toward Lance, her voice low but cutting. "I bet she has some tragic background. Poor kid from nowhere, attempting to prove she's important." Lance laughed. "Yeah, well, she's proven she's insignificant." Olivia's fingers paused on her laces just briefly. Then she continued tying, her movement slow as if sealing something within her. In the equipment shed, where cadets received gear for the next exercise, Olivia awaited her turn, her backpack slung over one shoulder. The quartermaster, a gruff older man named Gibbs, distributed vests and helmets with a scowl. When Olivia stepped forward, he looked her over, his lip curling. "What's this? A homeless shelter?" he said loud enough for the line to hear. We don't have gear for civilians, sweetheart. He tossed her a vest, 2 sizes oversized, the straps hanging uselessly. The cadets behind her snickered. Maybe use it as shelter, one called. Olivia caught the vest, her fingers gripping the canvas. She didn't protest, didn't request a replacement. She just slung it over her shoulder and walked out, her boots echoing on the concrete. Gibbs laughed, shaking his head. That one's gonna quit by tomorrow, he said to the room. Outside, Olivia adjusted the vest with several quick knots, making it fit perfectly, her hands moving with the same precision she'd shown with the rifle. The terrain run the following morning was punishing. 10 miles over rough ground, full gear, no brakes. Olivia stayed in, the middle of the pack, her breathing even, her steps steady. Tara was directly behind her, complaining the entire time. Move faster, charity case, she hissed. You're slowing us down. At the halfway point, Tara nudged Olivia's elbow just enough to throw her off balance. Olivia's foot caught a rock and she veered off the path, her ankle twisting as she hit the ground. Captain Harrow witnessed it. Mitchell, he roared. Broke formation. Squad loses points. The group groaned, some shooting her hostile looks. Lance turned, his face flushed. Nice work, Mitchell. Real team player. Olivia didn't argue. She got back in line, her jaw clenched, and kept running, her limp barely visible. When the run concluded, Harrow pointed at her. 5 additional laps. Move. The others watched, some smirking as Olivia started running again, her breath coming in short gasps. She finished, her face slick with sweat, her hands on her knees. No one offered her water. Tara tossed an empty bottle at her feet. Hydrate with nothing, she said, laughing. Olivia picked up the bottle, crushed it in her hand, and dropped it in the waste bin. Not a sound. During a night exercise, the cadets were assigned to establish a perimeter under simulated enemy fire. Flares illuminated the sky, and instructors shouted commands, creating chaos. Olivia worked independently, securing a rope barrier with steady hands. A cadet named Marcus, stocky and loud, decided she was an easy target. He grabbed her rope, yanking it free, and tossed it into the mud. Oops, he said, grinning. Guess? You're not suited for this, huh? The others nearby laughed, their flashlights bobbing as they watched. Olivia knelt, picked up the rope, and started over, her fingers moving methodically. Marcus wasn't finished. He kicked dirt onto her hands, coating the rope in grime. Keep attempting, princess, he said. Maybe you'll accomplish it by dawn, the group roared. Olivia paused, her hand still, then looked up at him. Are you finished? She asked, her voice quiet but sharp. Marcus blinked, caught off guard, but laughed it off. She returned to work, her face unreadable. The rope clean again, in seconds. Later, when the drill ended, Marcus's own barrier was found loose, costing his squad points. No one saw Olivia near it, but Elena, watching from the sidelines, concealed a small smile. That night, in the barracks, Olivia sat on her bunk, pulling an old photograph from her bag. It was creased, the edges worn, showing a younger her standing next to a man in a dark jacket. His face was obscured, but his posture, shoulders back, eyes sharp, felt like it carried authority. She traced her finger over the photo, her lips pressing together, then tucked it away when she heard footsteps. Lance walked by, tossing his towel over his shoulder. Better rest well, Mitchell, he said. Tomorrow's marksmanship. Don't fail. Olivia didn't look at him. She lay back, hands behind her head, staring at the ceiling, her breathing slow and even. The long-range shooting examination was a critical moment. 5 shots, 400 meters, 5 bullseyes, or you're eliminated. The cadets lined up, anxious, adjusting their scopes, whispering about wind conditions. Tara went first, missing 2 shots, her face pale as she stepped back. Lance hit 4, cursing under his breath. Then Olivia walked forward. Tara whispered to the woman next to her, I bet she can't even hold it properly. Olivia settled into position, her movements calm, almost mechanical. 5 shots, 5 perfect hits, dead center. No hesitation, no scope adjustments. The range officer blinked at the target, then announced it. Mitchell, perfect score. A colonel observing from a distance, an older man with gray hair and a chest full of medals, leaned forward. Who trained her? He murmured to his aide. That's a special operations trigger discipline. Lance overheard and rolled his eyes. Lucky shot, he said. Let's see her in actual combat. But during the equipment inspection after the range, an officer discovered Olivia's rifle had a misaligned sight nobody else had noticed. She'd still hit every shot, compensating perfectly. The officer shook his head, muttering, "That's not fortune, that's expertise." In the mess hall the following day, Olivia's tray was empty. She'd been last in line, and the food had been depleted. She sat regardless, sipping water, her face calm. A group of cadets, led by a woman named Jenna, spotted her and decided to have entertainment. Jenna, tall and smug with a laugh that carried, walked over and dropped a half-eaten apple onto Olivia's tray. "Here," she said, her voice dripping with pity. "Can't have you starving, right? You need energy to life." "What? Carry our equipment?" The table behind her burst into laughter. Olivia looked at the apple, then at Jenna, her eyes steady. "Thanks," she said, picking it up and taking a slow bite. Jenna's smile wavered. She'd expected a reaction, not this. The group kept laughing, but it was forced. Now, Olivia finished the apple, core and all, and set the tray aside. As she stood to leave, she brushed past Jenna, her shoulder just grazing her enough to make Jenna step back. The room went quiet for a moment, watching her go. The combat simulation was the real evaluation. One-on-one, hand-to-hand, no weapons. Olivia was matched against Lance, who towered over her, his fists clenched, a grin spreading across his face. Before the whistle sounded, he charged, grabbing her collar and slamming her against the wall. Her shirt tore, the fabric ripping from her shoulder to her back, exposing a faded black tattoo across her shoulder blade. The squad burst into laughter. "She's got ink too," Tara jeered. "What is this? A motorcycle club?" Lance leaned in, his face inches from hers. "This isn't childcare, Mitchell. It's a battlefield. Go home, rookie." Olivia didn't move, her eyes locked on his, steady, unblinking. "Release me," she said, her voice low. Lance laughed, but his grip loosened just for a second. She stepped back, turned, and the torn shirt fell lower, revealing the full tattoo, a coiled black viper with a shattered skull. The yard went silent. The colonel, the one who'd been observing, stepped forward, his boots crunching on the gravel. His eyes widened, his face pale. "Who authorized you to wear that mark?" he asked, his voice shaking. Olivia stood there, her back straight, the tattoo stark against her skin. "I didn't request it," she said quietly. "It was awarded by Ghost Viper himself. I trained under him for 6 years." The colonel froze, then straightened, his hand snapping to his forehead in a salute. The other officers stared, their mouths open. Lance stumbled back, his face drained of color. An aide whispered, "No one bears that tattoo unless they're his final protege." Tara's smirk vanished. She looked away, her hands trembling. During a strategy briefing the next morning, Olivia sat in the back, her notebook open, her pen moving quickly. The instructor, a stern woman named Major Klein, was explaining defensive tactics when she called on Olivia, her tone sharp. "Mitchell, do you have something to contribute, or are you just sketching back there?" The room turned, expecting her to shrink. Olivia looked up, her pen still, and said, "Your flank's exposed on the left. You'd lose half your force in an ambush." Klein blinked, caught off guard. She glanced at the diagram, then back at Olivia. "Explain," she said. Olivia stood, walked to the board, and drew a quick adjustment, her lines precise. "Shift your scouts here," she said. "Eliminates their angle of attack." The room was silent. Klein nodded slowly, then said, "Noted. Sit down." As Olivia returned to her seat, Tara whispered, "Teacher's pet." "Now," but Klein overheard and snapped. "Quiet, cadet. She just saved your hypothetical lives." Tara's face burned, and the room shifted, eyes lingering on Olivia with newfound respect. Ghost Viper. The name was a legend itself, a whisper from a unit erased from records 5 years ago. No one spoke of it openly, but the stories lingered, missions that never occurred, operatives who disappeared, a leader who trained only a select few, each marked with that tattoo. Olivia didn't look at the colonel, didn't look at anyone. She pulled her torn shirt back over her shoulder and walked to the edge of the yard, her steps slow, deliberate. The silence followed her, heavy, unbroken. Lance couldn't accept it. His pride wouldn't permit it. He stood in the middle of the yard, his fists clenched, his voice echoing. "So what if she has a tattoo?" he shouted. "Prove it in an actual fight." The cadets looked at each other, uncertain. Olivia stopped walking. She turned, her eyes cold, and said, "If that's what you require." She didn't fix her shirt, just let it hang, the tattoo still visible, her stance calm but unyielding. Lance charged, swinging wildly, his fist aimed at her face. Olivia dodged every punch, her movements fluid, almost effortless. He yelled, "Strike me already." She didn't. She let him exhaust himself, his swings getting sloppier, his breath ragged. Then, in one motion, she stepped forward, a snap choke, her arm around his neck, a twist, a pull. 8 seconds. Lance collapsed unconscious, his body limp on the ground. No one spoke. Captain Harrow walked over, his face unreadable. He looked at Lance, then at Olivia, then at the group. Effective immediately, he said, "Olivia Mitchell is honorary instructor. You'll learn from her." Olivia didn't nod, didn't smile. She picked up her backpack, pulled her torn shirt closed, and walked off. The cadets parted for her, their eyes down, their laughter gone. During a live fire exercise the next day, Olivia was assigned to lead a small team through a mock urban assault. Her group included Tara, who rolled her eyes at the assignment. As they moved through the course, Tara deliberately ignored Olivia's signals, rushing ahead and triggering a tripwire that set off a deafening siren. The exercise halted and Harrow stormed over, his face red. "Mitchell, your team's a disaster," he bellowed. Tara smirked, whispering to Derek, "Told you she's useless." Olivia stood there, her hand steady, and said, "Tara broke formation." I signaled her to wait. Harrow turned to Tara, who shrugged. "Didn't notice it." She lied. The group snickered, blaming Olivia for the failure. She didn't argue, just nodded and said, "Understood, sir." But as they reset, an overhead drone replay showed Tara ignoring the signal, clear as day. Harrow watched the footage, his jaw tight, and docked Tara's squad points. The group's laughter died, and Tara's face went pale. The camp transformed after that. The atmosphere felt heavier, the whispers quieter. Olivia stood at the front of the yard the next day, her backpack over one shoulder, her t-shirt swapped for a plain black one. She didn't bark orders, didn't raise her voice. She just demonstrated rifle drills, combat stances, moves that looked simple but required years to master. The cadets watched, some taking notes, others just staring. Tara sat in the back, her arms crossed, her face pale. Lance wasn't there. Word was he'd been sent to medical, then reassigned to a desk position at a base in the middle of nowhere. No one discussed it, but everyone knew. In a first aid drill, Olivia was paired with Derek, who'd mocked her in the mess hall. They had to treat a simulated casualty under time pressure. Derek, eager to show off, shoved Olivia aside as she reached for the medical kit. "I've got this," he said loud enough for the group to hear. "You'd probably just make it worse." He fumbled the bandages, wrapping them too loose, blood seeping through the dummy's salt, fake wounds. The instructor, a medic named Carter, shook his head. "You're killing him, cadet." Derek's face reddened, and he snapped. "She distracted me," pointing at Olivia. The group laughed, egging him on. Olivia stepped forward, her hands steady, and redid the bandages in seconds, her wraps tight and perfect. Carter nodded, impressed. "That's how it's done," he said. Derek stormed off, muttering, but the group's laughter turned to murmurs. Later, Carter pulled Olivia aside and handed her a medic patch, saying, "You earned this." She took it, her face blank, and slipped it into her bag. A week later, during a break, an officer approached Olivia. He was young, nervous, clutching a clipboard. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low. "There's someone here for you." Olivia looked up, her eyes narrowing. She followed him to the camp's entrance, where a man stood waiting. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with short-cropped hair and a face that revealed nothing. He wore a dark jacket and jeans, no uniform, but the guard stepped back when he moved. The colonel was there too, his hands clasped behind his back. "General?" he said, nodding to the man. The man didn't respond. He looked at Olivia, his eyes softening for a moment. She walked up to him, her face unreadable, and stopped a few feet away. "You didn't have to come," she said. He tilted his head, almost smiling. "Yeah," he said, "I did. The cadets watching from a say." Distance went quiet. Tara, standing nearby, dropped her water bottle, the plastic clattering on the ground. The colonel cleared his throat, addressing the group. "This is General Thomas Reed," he said, "Olivia's husband." The words hit like a shockwave. Reed didn't say anything else. He put a hand on Olivia's shoulder, and they walked to the pickup she'd arrived in. The engine roared to life, and they drove off, the dust kicking up behind them. No one moved until the truck was gone. During a final review, the camp's top brass gathered to evaluate the cadets' progress. Olivia's name came up, and the room went quiet. A junior officer, unaware of her story, suggested cutting her for lack of leadership. The colonel, the same one who'd saluted her, leaned forward, his voice low. "Mitchell's file is classified," he said. "But I'll tell you this, she's the only one here who could have run this camp blindfolded." He pulled out a sealed envelope stamped with a black Viper emblem and slid it across the table. "Her evaluations from Ghost Viper. Read them, then tell me who's lacking." The officer opened it, his hands trembling, and went pale. The room stayed silent as he read, his eyes widening with every line. Olivia wasn't there. She didn't need to be. Her truth was already rewriting the narrative. The fallout was swift. Tara's sponsorship with a defense contractor vanished after a video of her mocking Olivia went viral. It wasn't Olivia who posted it, just a cadet with a phone and a sense of justice. Tara left the camp a week later, her head down, her bags packed. Lance's reassignment wasn't the end for him either. His name came up in an internal review, and he was discharged for conduct unbecoming. The others, the ones who'd laughed, who'd tossed empty bottles, didn't face formal punishment, but they carried something heavier shame, the kind that lingers, that makes you avoid mirrors. Olivia didn't return to the camp. Her name stayed on the instructor roster, but she never taught another session. Some said she was with Reed, running a training program no one could confirm. Others said she'd vanished, just like Ghost Viper. But the cadets who'd seen her, who'd watched her move, who'd felt the weight of her silence, they didn't forget. They told her story, passed it down, let it grow. Not a legend, not a myth, just the truth of a woman who didn't need to shout to be heard. Years earlier, Olivia had been different. Not softer, but younger, her, edges less defined. She trained in a compound nobody knew existed, under a man whose name was never spoken. He'd chosen her not because of her family's wealth, but because of her stillness, because she listened, because she moved with purpose. 6 years she'd learned his methods, the rifle, the choke, the way to stand, so the world noticed without you saying a word. He'd given her the tattoo himself, the needle biting into her skin as he said, "This isn't a badge, it's a promise." She'd nodded, her jaw tight, and carried that promise ever since. Back in the camp, the days after her departure felt hollow. The cadets trained harder, but the energy was different. They'd witnessed something they couldn't unsee. During a night drill, one of the younger recruits, a kid named Sam, found Olivia's old photo in the barracks, tucked under a bunk. He held it up, squinting at the blurred man in the dark jacket. "Who was she really?" he asked the group. No one answered. Tara, still there but quieter now, looked at the floor. Sam slipped the photo into his pocket, not sure why, but feeling like it mattered. The consequences kept coming. The defense contractor who dropped Tara faced a PR nightmare when the video spread further, their stock dipping as online forums lit up with outrage. Lance's discharge wasn't just a footnote. His family name, once respected, became a cautionary tale in military circles. Captain Harrow, who'd yelled at Olivia for breaking formation, was called into a meeting with the colonel. Nobody heard what was said, but Harrow was quieter after that, his orders less harsh, his eyes scanning the yard like he was looking for something he'd missed. Olivia's story didn't end with the camp. It spread, carried by the cadets, by the officers, by the whispers that followed her name. It reached the older folks, the ones who'd been judged their whole lives, who'd been told they didn't belong. They heard about the woman who'd walked into a room full of scorn and walked out with a salute. They understood her silence, her steady hands, the way she didn't need to explain herself. Her story was theirs, a reminder that truth doesn't need amplification. It just needs time. In the end, it wasn't about the tattoo or the rifle or the choke that dropped Lance. It was about Olivia's presence, the way she carried her pain, her past, her power, all without a word. She didn't need to prove herself. The world caught up, like it always does. And for everyone who'd ever been pushed aside, her story was a quiet promise. Your time's coming. Hold your ground. You're enough. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and hit follow to walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and finally healing.